Good morning. Today we'll be talking about the PMO approach, which is the third approach in ascertaining the reaction conditions of a pericyclic reaction. We've already discussed the OCD approach, the FMO approach. The PMO approach, or known as the perturbational molecular orbital approach, is probably the most easiest of all and probably based on more strong grounds as compared to the FMO and the OCD approach. This PMO approach, or the permutational molecular orbital approach, is based upon the M.G. Dever's theory of perturbation of molecular orbitals. That means that while combining the atomic orbitals should perturb with one another in the best possible way to form a molecular orbital or to form the product. Now this is based on the Huckel's theory of, or the Huckel's rule of aromaticity. I just revise or recap the Huckel's aromaticity rules. If you remember, according to Huckel's rule, we used to categorize systems as aromatic, anti-aromatic or non-aromatic. I'll just revise this thing once again. Huckel's rule says that a system is aromatic if it fulfills these four criteria. What are these four criteria? If the number of electrons in that system which is under consideration to be aromatic or anti-aromatic are 4q plus 2, where q is a positive integer which starts from 1. Q is a positive integer which starts from 1. So if I have a system in which I have 6 electrons, because value of Q is 1, that means 6. If I have a system which has 10 electrons, 14, 18, 22, etc., all this system will have 4q plus 2 pi electrons. If any system fulfills this criteria, this is the first criteria for a molecule to be aromatic. Then if a molecule needs to be aromatic, the system or the rings system should be, that means it should be a cyclic system. It cannot be acyclic to be aromatic in nature. The third criteria is that it should have a set of pi electrons, the pi bonds, and all those pi bonds needs to be conjugated in nature. So if there is a system under consideration to be aromatic or anti-aromatic, we need to look out the system. It should have 4q plus 2 pi electrons. It should have a cyclic system, and that cyclic system should have pi electrons or pi bonds which are extensively in conjugation with one another. And most importantly of all, that the entire system needs to be planar. Well, planarity and conjugation would come together, because if you have a pi bond, then we know that pi bond should be sp2 hybridized, because the carbon atoms having the pi bond should be sp2 hybridized, and if they are sp2 hybridized, they'll always be planar only. So if any molecule is following all these four sets of criteria, having 4q plus 2 pi electrons, system is cyclic, conjugated and planar, we categorize those systems as aromatic systems. We must have already gone through certain examples of comparing the aromatic and anti-aromatic and non-aromatic systems. More importantly, let's compare anti-aromatic and non-aromatic systems. If any system is cyclic, if it is conjugated, and even has even is planar in nature because of the conjugation of the pi electrons involved, then probably that system, if it has not 4q plus 2 pi electrons but 4q electrons, again q is a positive integer which starts from 1, that would mean if the number of electrons in that system are, let's say, 4, if the value of q is 1, then the value of q is 2, it will be 8. So if it has 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, so many electrons in the system, even though it is cyclic, conjugated and planar, we categorize those systems as anti-aromatic. So the only difference between aromatic and anti-aromatic systems is both systems are cyclic, both systems have conjugated set of pi electrons in it, and because of that both systems are planar, whereas in the case of aromatic electrons, the pi electrons are 4q plus 2, and in the case of anti-aromatic electrons, the number of pi electrons in that system which is under consideration are 4q in nature. Now comes the third category. If a system doesn't follow any of the B, C and D criteria, that means if a system, we are not concerned with the number of pi electrons in the case of non-aromatic systems. If a system is not cyclic but has 4q plus 2 pi electrons, then again it is non-aromatic. If a system is not conjugated, let's say I have a octatriene molecule in which I have one pi bond which is isolated and 2 pi bonds are in conjugation. That means the total set of 3 pi bonds are not conjugated, So there is a lack or a break in conjugation. Whenever this kind of a thing occurs, that means even if the system is cyclic but the conjugation is not there, again it is categorized as non-aromatic. If the system is acyclic, conjugation is there, again that system is non-aromatic. And because of the lack of conjugation or the lack of the cyclic behavior, you can expect these kinds of systems to be non-planar in nature. And once they are non-planar in nature, again they are categorized as non-aromatic systems. So if a system is not cyclic, if a system doesn't have conjugated set of electrons, or the system is not planar, even though it has 4q plus 2 pi electrons or it has 4q electrons, we categorize those systems as non-aromatic systems. This is the rule of classifying the system or the cyclic systems as aromatic, anti-aromatic and non-aromatic based on the Huckel's rules of aromaticity. Right. Now PMO approach is based on the fact that as long as the number of nodes in a cyclic array of atomic orbitals is 0 or even, the aromaticity of the system is not altered. What does it mean? This means that if we are considering a cyclic system, or if we are considering a transition state which is leading from the reactant to product and is cyclic in nature, and as you know, all pericyclic reactions proceed through a cyclic transition state. So in PMO approach, we are always considerant about the transition state, and transition states are normally cyclic in nature. So if we are considering a cyclic transition state, then the number of nodes in the cyclic transition states are worth very important, because they will decide whether a system is aromatic or it is anti-aromatic in nature. And the rule is, if the number of nodes are, if there are no nodes or if there are even nodes, whatever is the aromaticity of the system remains unchanged. If the system, let's say, is aromatic with 0 nodes, then even with 2 nodes or 4 nodes or 6 nodes, the system will still remain aromatic in nature, only the aromaticity will remain unaltered. However, the position is reversed if only one or odd number of nodes are present in the cyclic array of atomic orbitals in the case of transition state. This means even if a system is aromatic, let's say with 6 pi electrons in a cyclic framework, if it is aromatic with 6 pi electrons in the cyclic framework, the introduction of a single node, odd node, would alter the aromaticity. That means that system which was aromatic, with the introduction of a single node, would become anti-aromatic in nature. This is what is the basis of the PMO approach. With the introduction of the node, the aromaticity reverses. That means an aromatic system, once a node comes, will become anti-aromatic, or an anti-aromatic system, once an odd node will come, becomes aromatic. However, if you have 0 or even number of nodes, then an aromatic system will remain aromatic, an anti-aromatic system will remain anti-aromatic. But with odd nodes, the system will alter. That means aromatic will become anti-aromatic, or anti-aromatic will become aromatic. And finally, the PMO approach is based on the Evans rule, which says that all thermal pericyclic reactions take preferentially or proceeds preferentially through an aromatic transition state, and all photochemical pericyclic reactions proceed preferentially through an anti-aromatic transition state. Now this is very easy to understand. What we are trying to say here is that if we are talking about an aromatic transition state, then aromatic transition state means that reaction is thermally possible. If we are achieving an anti-aromatic transition state, then that reaction is photochemically allowed. This is the rule or the basis of the PMO approach. So PMO approach is based on 3 things. It is based on the MG-Reva's theory of perturbation of molecular orbitals. Then it is based on the Huckel's rule of aromaticity. That means we have to judge a transition state of any reaction which leads from the reactant to the product, whether the transition state is aromatic or anti-aromatic. And if a state is aromatic, that would be corresponding to a thermal reaction, and if a state is anti-aromatic, that would be corresponding to a photochemical reaction. This is the basis of the Evans rule, and forms the basis of the PMO approach in ascertaining the reaction condition of a particular pericyclic reaction. Right. Therefore, if I apply the Evans and the Devas rule to predict the reaction condition of a pericyclic reaction using the PMO approach, I have to follow certain set of rules. Right. What are those set of rules? First of all, molecular orbitals are always written. Molecular orbitals in what state? In the transition state. So molecular orbitals are always written in the transition state that leads from the reactant to product in the lowest bonding approximation. That is, the most stable molecular orbital is always drawn where maximum overlap of atomic orbital lobes are possible. This is the first rule. What does it mean? That if you remember, in the case of FMO approach, we used to draw the HOMOs and the LUMOs while interacting the cycloaddition, while interacting the reactants. In the case of cycloadditions, we used to draw HOMOs. In the case of electrocyclic reaction, we used to draw HOMOs in the case of sigmatropic reaction. Whereas PMO approach says, let's not draw HOMO. We'll draw a transition state which should be most stable. And most stable transition state will always correspond to that molecular orbital which is most stable. And most stable molecular orbital will be one in which there are all bonding interaction between all possible p lobes. Therefore, that molecular orbital is written which is most stable, which normally corresponds to all polyene systems psi 1. If I'm considering any polyene system, let's say a butadiene, let's say a hexatriene, let's say octatetraene, psi 1 orbital will be always the most stable orbital. Therefore, I need to draw that orbital only. The most stable molecular orbital is drawn where there is a maximum overlap of the atomic orbital lobes. That's the first rule. The second rule is that atomic orbital lobes in the transition state are joined through dotted lines. We draw a transition state, draw a molecular orbital which is most stable, then we join the atomic orbital lobes with dotted lines to show the maximum overlap, and this would depend upon the kind of stereochemical mode which we have chosen in the reaction. Now we know all pericyclic reaction proceeds through different stereochemical modes. We'll understand, or we'll consider one stereochemical mode, draw the molecular orbital, join the lobes of these molecular of the atomic orbitals in this molecular orbital by dotted lines, and once we join the lobes with the dotted lines, we'd find, or we'd ascertain that which stereochemical mode are we considering in this reaction. Then finally, the number of nodes and electrons in the transition state are counted or worked out. Means we've drawn a transition state, we'll see how many electron system is this transition state now made up of, and whether corresponding to a particular stereochemical mode there is a node or not. I've counted the number of nodes, I've counted the number of electrons in the transition state, and from there I would calculate, or I would work out that what is the aromaticity of that transition state. And once I've done this thing, I've worked out the aromaticity, I'd say aromatic transition state, as I've told you based on the Evans rule, the aromatic transition state corresponds to a thermal reaction, and the anti-aromatic transition state always corresponds to a photochemical reaction, right? So this is the basis of your PMO approach. These are 4 set of rules which have to be followed while using the PMO approach for gauging the reaction conditions in the case of pericyclic reaction. Now one food for thought, as you can consider this thing. Let's consider this system which I have drawn here. Now based on Huckel's rule, just imagine, close your eyes for a moment and imagine cyclooctatetraene, which is this system. This one. Now this system, according to the Huckel's rule, has conjugated set of 4 pi bonds. All 4 pi bonds are conjugated, arranged in a cyclic framework, all carbon atoms being sp2 hybridized are planar. Therefore the category B, C and D, being cyclic, being conjugated and being planar, are fits in. It has 8 pi electrons in the system corresponding to 4 pi bonds. Therefore this system is anti-aromatic. Now based on this rule, I've already explained that this system is anti-aromatic in system. But this system is anti-aromatic if there are no nodes or even nodes. Introduction of a node, that means one node in the system, would create aromaticity to that molecular orbital. Now how is this possible? Consider, for example, in the first case, the Huckel's molecular orbital. In the case of Huckel molecular orbital, we have drawn the most stable molecular orbital in which we have shown no node. This Huckel system with 0 node, 8 pi electrons are anti-aromatic. Whereas if you draw a single node, how it is possible that the molecular orbitals will have a proper overlap? Then we follow the Mobius approach in drawing or relating the molecular orbitals. Let's say I have a node here. Now with the node, you know the signs invert. If it is plus here, this will become minus. We believe that this will still remain conjugated, which is the forte, or which is the forte of an aromatic reaction, that all lobes which are involved in the conjugation should remain extensively conjugated. Now, once I have a node, how would the plus and minus remain conjugated? We believe that these p orbitals do not remain parallel to one another throughout the stretch of the molecule. There is in general a rotation or a twist, which we call in the case of Mobius system as half twist. That is a twist of 180 degrees which follow from the one orbital to the other orbital where the node is formed. For example, let's say, if this is the p lobe, it twists a bit, further twists, further twist. Similarly, this orbital twists a bit, twists a bit, twists a bit, and finally you see what happens with this. Once it twists, this moves here, it moves down, 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 and you see there is a conjugation like this throughout the system. There is a conjugation like this throughout the system. This is only possible if the p orbital twists. Node is created, and once there is a twist or a rotation of the p orbital, the p orbitals can now overlap. They can be a conjugation, and once there can be a conjugation, then only we can assume this system to be aromatic in nature. Okay, now let's move forward with the PMO approach, and let's try to work out the PMO approach in different categories of pericyclic reaction. We'd start with the PMO approach in the case of cyclodation reactions. Of course, you know what is cyclodation reaction, so needless to say, cyclodation reaction is a reaction between two reactants, one reactant having m pi electrons, second reactant having n pi electrons, both add on to one another, both are acyclic in nature or partially cyclic in nature, and they form a cyclic product having m minus 2 pi electrons, n minus 2 pi electrons, and two new sigma bonds are formed. So we've discussed this multiple times, we know this thing. Now, using PMO approach, what set of rules are to be followed while gauging the cyclodation reaction in the case of PMO? It will remain same. First, atomic lobes in the transition state are joined. First of all, the transition state corresponds to the most stable molecular orbital of both the reactants. Means, first of all, when we have to interact, we have to write the transition state, we have to write the molecular orbitals of both the reactants. In the case of cyclodation, we have to draw the most stable molecular orbital. That's the first rule. That means psi1s corresponding to both reactants. Second, once we have drawn the molecular orbital and we have shown the atomic orbital lobes, then the atomic orbital lobes in the transition state needs to be joined through dotted lines, and there should be a maximum overlap between the atomic orbitals in that particular molecular orbital. And once you join them, you have to join them considering what stereochemical mode are you talking about. And once you have done this, then in the transition state we calculate how many pi electrons are there, how many nodes are there, and once you calculate this thing, from that calculation you work out what is the aromaticity of that transition state. And once you worked out the aromaticity, we know, as we've talked before, an aromatic transition state corresponds to thermal reaction and an anti-aromatic transition state corresponds to photochemical reaction. So we'll move fast. We'll talk about the first example, the example of ethene dimerization, right? Ethene dimerization, a cyclodation reaction, is a 2+2 cyclodation reaction. It involves two reactants, two ethene molecules as two reactants. Two ethene molecules add on to one another. We know these two add on to one another and cyclobutane is formed. This is a typical cyclodation reaction. There are two reactants involved, one ethene having 2 pi electrons, second ethene having the 2 pi electrons. So I've drawn one reactant here, one reactant here. This is one ethene molecule, this is the second ethene molecule. Remember, first rule is draw the most stable orbital. Most stable orbital is what? Pi 1 in the case of one ethene, and similarly pi 1 in the case of the second ethene molecule. Plus plus without a node, plus plus without a node. And in order to draw these orbitals, I have to show maximum overlap between these two orbitals. So if I've drawn plus plus here, the second plus of the second molecular orbital should be in this side so that there is a bonding interaction, right? We have drawn the most stable orbital. Then after drawing the most stable orbital, considering the stereochemical mode we are talking about, let's say in this particular case I am talking about a supra-supra cyclodation reaction. When I say supra-supra, supra corresponding to first ethene molecule, supra corresponding to second ethene molecule. Supra corresponding to first ethene means both the same lobes of the terminal ethene molecules will add. Similarly, same lobes of the terminal ethene molecule will add in the second reactant. So supra corresponding to this, supra corresponding to this. This is supra, this is supra. See, I have drawn a transition state corresponding to a supra-supra interaction, joined the atomic orbitals in this molecular orbital, and seen that in this transition state, how many pi electrons are there? 2 coming from one ethene, 2 coming from second ethene. So total this transition state is having 4 pi electrons. As I've told you, the mode of cyclodation is supra-supra. Now according to Huckel's rule, this is a cyclic transition state. Having 4 pi electrons, it is cyclic in nature, cyclic transition state, because 4 carbon atoms are all sp2 hybridized, therefore it is planar, and of course the system is conjugated in nature. Therefore, and since while drawing the supra-supra interaction, we see that there is no node encountered. So according to Huckel's rule, it's a 4 pi electron system, and I know 4 pi electron system belongs to the 4q category of electron system, and according to Huckel's rule, these systems are anti-aromatic in nature. And since there is 0 nodes, as I've told you before, 0 or even number of nodes do not alter the aromaticity. Therefore, it is anti-aromatic. With 0 nodes, it will remain anti-aromatic. And as I've told you before also, that all anti-aromatic system corresponds to photochemical process. Therefore, this cyclodation, what cyclodation? A supra-supra 2 plus 2 cyclodation reaction is photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. Right? Now let's talk about other stereochemical modes. Let's talk about, first of all, the supra-supra, the supra and tara. Now it is simple. Draw the molecular orbitals which is most stable, plus, 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 plus. Try to draw the molecular orbital as to show the maximum interaction. Now let's say the first ethene is adding in a suprafacial manner, the second ethene is adding in an interafacial manner. Supra means same side of the p lobes will add, and tara means opposite faces of the p lobe will add, right? So once there's a supra and tara interaction, this interacts in this with this, but here this supra will add in this fashion to the antara. So once this plus interacts with minus, there is a anti-bonding interaction. This is still a 4 electron system, but now it has one node. A 4 electron system with 0 node was anti-aromatic, but with the introduction of one node it becomes aromatic in nature. Though aromaticity alters with an introduction of a node, so it becomes aromatic, and when aromatic system is thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. So it is this easy to predict the reaction condition in the case of PMO approach. Right? Let's talk about Antara Supra. In the case of Antara Supra, see again it is very simple. We talk about Antara Supra means first component adding in an interafacial manner, the second component adding in a suprafacial manner. Most stable orbitals are drawn, plus, 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 plus in both cases. The stereochemical mode is Antara Supra. That means this component first adds from the opposite face, whereas this component adds from the same face. So I have an interaction here. Plus is interacting here with minus. So there is a node. This 4 electron system with one node, with 4 electron system with 0 node was anti-aromatic, but with the introduction of odd nodes, the aromaticity alters. Therefore, 4 electron system with 1 node becomes aromatic, and aromatic systems are thermally allowed and obviously photochemically forbidden. And the last stereochemical mode, that is the Antara stereochemical mode. See the stereochemical mode? That means interafacial on both components, opposite faces of first reactant, opposite faces of the second reactant. Of course, we have to draw the most stable orbital. Let's join the atomic orbitals with the dotted lines here. You see, when we draw the dotted lines, plus interacts with plus, with plus, and even minus interacts with minus. That means there is no node. With 4 electron system, still it remains in all the cases. This has 0 node. 4q system with 0 node is anti-aromatic, and anti-aromatic systems are photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. Therefore, I can say that 2 plus 2 pi cyclodation reaction under supra stereochemical mode is a photochemically allowed process, and the supra and tara in a supra and tara or an Antara Supra mode is a thermally allowed process. So this is the first example as far as cyclodation reaction is concerned. Let's move to the second example. Let's talk about the DA cyclodation. You know, DA cyclodation is a reaction between a butadiene and an ethene. Butadiene is a 4 pi component, ethene is a 2 pi component, so it's a 4 plus 2 pi cyclodation reaction. Butadiene combines with ethene and cyclohexene is formed. We have done this multiple times. Let's talk straight away about the PMO approach using the cyclodation reaction. I'll repeat again. In the case of PMO approach, we know that how do you use the PMO approach? In the case of PMO approach, we have to draw the transition state. Which transition state? That transition state which corresponds to the most stable molecular orbitals of both the reactants. That means I have 2 reactants. One was your butadiene, other was your ethene. Most stable molecular orbital of butadiene is psi 1, The most stable molecular orbital of ethene is pi 1. No nodes here, no nodes here. Pi 1 with 0 node, pi 1 with 0 node and psi 1 with 0 node, right? Same molecular orbitals are drawn for all possible stereochemical modes, right? Now let's draw the stereochemical. Let's join the dots with respect to the stereochemical mode addition. For example, supra for butadiene, supra for ethene, supra for diene, supra for dienophile. So if this component is adding same phase, that means this is adding. Supra for this means if this component is adding, same phase is adding. Now you join this atomic orbitals, you see 4 electrons are coming from butadiene, 2 electrons are coming from ethene. When I join this thing, I see a bonding interaction between all these atomic orbital lobes. That means there is this 6 electron system has 0 nodes. If it's the 6 electron system, it falls according to the Huckel's rule. According to the Huckel rules, this is a 4q plus 2 pi system, and 4q plus 2 pi system according to Huckel's rule are aromatic in nature, and if they are aromatic in nature, of course they are thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. Second stereochemical mode, supra and tara. Same molecular orbital, no change in the signs. The only difference is in the case of supra and tara, diene adds in a suprafacial manner, dienophile adds in an antarafacial manner. So for diene, same phase adds, for dienophile opposite phase adds. Once opposite phase adds, it is the plus lobe of the diene which interacts with the minus lobe of the dienophile. That means there is an anti-bonding interaction, that means there is a node. So this 6 electron system has 1 node. If 6 electron system with 0 node was aromatic, with an introduction of an odd node it becomes anti-aromatic, and anti-aromatic systems are photochemically allowed. Similarly in tara supra, antarafacial for diene, suprafacial for dienophile. Antarafacial means for diene means opposite phases are adding. So if this phase is adding for the diene, it is the opposite phase of the terminal lobe which has to add. If that is correct, that means there is an interaction between plus plus, minus interacts with plus here, as you can see. Minus interacts with plus here. We have a node, 6 electron system with 1 node changes the aromaticity. If 6 electron system with 0 node was aromatic, 6 electron system with 1 node will be anti-aromatic, and anti-aromatic system corresponds to a photochemical reaction. Hence this process, antara supra is photochemically allowed. And as I've told you, whatever is the behavior of supra supra, the same behavior is shown for antara. Whatever is behavior of supra antara, same behavior is there for the antara supra. So antara means antarafacial for the diene, antarafacial for the dienophile. Antarafacial means opposite faces of the diene are adding. Antarafacial means opposite faces of the dienophile are adding. As you can see, plus plus here, plus plus, this minus interacts with minus. So there's no node, 6 electron system, no node, remains aromatic, processes thermally allowed. It is this simple to ascertain the with the help of PMO approach, the reaction conditions of a following reaction. Of course, as I've told you multiple times, if there is no mention of the stereochemical mode, the default stereochemical mode in the cyclone-addition reaction always remains supra-supra. Therefore, I can say that 4 plus 2 pi cyclone-addition or the DA cyclone-addition reaction is a thermally allowed process. Of course, under supra-supra is thermally allowed, so by default this is a thermally allowed process. Let's take another example of the cyclone-addition reaction. Now we go a bit fast. Let's talk about the example of the hexatriene ethene, that is 6 plus 2 pi cyclone-addition. Hexatriene is this component, ethene is this component, the two add on and we get a 8-membered cyclooctadiene molecule, right? We have to draw the transition state. I have two reactants, one is a hexatriene, one is an ethene. I have to draw the most stable orbital corresponding to the hexatriene and most stable orbital corresponding to the ethene. I draw all 4 stereochemical modes, supra-supra, supra-antara, antara-supra, and antara-antara. Now if you draw supra-supra, that means both components, that means hexatriene as well as your ethene are adding in a suprafacial manner. So let's say, how do I draw the orbitals? The most stable orbital has all plus signs. The most stable orbital for the ethene has all plus signs on the same phase, right? So supra-supra means same phase is adding. Supra-supra means same phase is adding. 6 electrons are coming from hexatriene, 2 electrons are coming from ethene. So it's an 8 electron system. For a supra-supra addition, there is a 0 node involved, and since a 0 node is involved, this system becomes anti-aromatic, and we know anti-aromatic systems are photochemically allowed. Let's talk about supra-antara process. Same molecular orbital. The only difference is suprafacial corresponding to hexatriene and tarafacial corresponding to ethene. So plus is interacting with minus. There is a node, and once there is a node, 8 electron system with 0 nodes. Earlier, according to Huckel rule, were anti-aromatic, but according to with introduction of odd nodes, it will become aromatic in nature. And aromatic systems are thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. Antara supra, antarafacial on hexatrine, suprafacial on ethene. Opposite faces are adding, plus interacts with plus. There is a bonding interaction. 8 nodes, 8 electrons, 1 node. Alteration in the aromaticity. The systems become aromatic and hence is thermally allowed. Again, antara, antarafacial here, antarafacial here. Plus interacts with plus, minus with minus, 8 electrons, 0 node with 8 electrons, because it falls under the Focus system of ascertaining the aromaticity. Therefore, this is anti-aromatic, and anti-aromatic systems are photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. Therefore, I can say that 6 plus 2 pi cycloaddition reactions, if no mention of stereochemistry is there, the default stereochemical mode is supra-supra, and supra-supra condition were photochemically allowed. Therefore, I can say 6 plus 2 pi cycloaddition reactions are photochemically allowed reactions. Of course, under the supra-supra, that is the default stereochemical mode we are talking about. So this is something regarding the use of the PMO approach for ascertaining the reaction conditions in the case of cycloaddition reactions. We'll talk now about the PMO approach in the case of electrocyclic reactions. Now again, you know what is electrocyclic reaction, so I can move fast with it. It's a reaction in which an acyclic component having k pi electrons undergoes a reorganization of the terminal pi electrons of the system and undergoes cyclization to form a cyclic system having k minus 2 pi electrons, and a new sigma bond or 2 new sigma electrons are formed. Now this system, again using PMO approach, the logic will remain same in all 3 pericyclic reactions. That is, first of all, we draw the most stable molecular orbitals, but since in the case of electrocyclic reaction, I have only one component, one reactant. Therefore, in the case of the electrocyclic reaction, the most stable molecular orbital corresponding to the acyclic component, not to the cyclic component, corresponding to the acyclic component is considered in the transition state. Of course, if I'm talking about, let's say for example, butadiene, I know butadiene has 4 molecular orbitals, namely psi1, psi2, psi3 and psi4. The most stable orbital is psi1. Therefore, in the case of butadiene's reaction, I'd only consider psi1, which is the most stable orbital corresponding to the acyclic component. Then we join the atomic orbital lobes with dotted lines to show maximum overlap. After considering the stereochemical mode, we have to consider stereochemical mode, then join the atomic orbital lobes with the dotted line in that particular molecular orbital in that particular transition state, and after that, in that transition state, we work out how many electrons are there, how many nodes are there, and from that calculation we work out what is the aromaticity of the system, whether that transition state is aromatic or anti-aromatic. And as I've told you before, an aromatic transition state will always correspond to a thermal reaction, whereas an anti-aromatic transition state will correspond to a photochemical reaction. So let's get started with the electrocyclic reactions. We can move fast here. It is simple. Let's talk about the first example, that is the butadiene cyclobutene interconversion. Butadiene is this reactant, you know this thing. It undergoes electrocyclization with the movement of pi electrons and forms cyclobutene ring, right? Acyclic component is butadiene. Butadiene's most stable orbital is psi1. So what I do, first of all, I mentioned both the stereochemical modes, the condrotatory as well as the histrotatory stereochemical mode. I draw the most stable orbital. So most stable orbital is one in which all the upper faces have same sign, that means there is no node here. Similarly, I draw the most stable orbital for this. So the orbital picture, whatever is the stereochemical mode, the orbital picture always remains the same. In the case of condrotatory lobes or the condrotatory rotation, since the lobes move in same direction, it is the, in the case of condrotatory, it is the terminal lobes opposite face which is interacting. So I interact this upper face with the lower face in the case of terminal lobes, and with this 4 electron system, as you can see, butadiene is a 4 electron system. While considering a condrotatory ring closure, always I'll have a node, because I'm interacting a positive with a negative. Always I'll have a node with this 4 electron system, 0 node. Imagine if there was 0 node. 4 electron system with 0 node was anti-aromatic according to Huckel rule, but with the introduction of 1 node it will become aromatic, and aromatic systems are thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. Okay, consider the distrotatory process. In the case of distrotatory process, both lobes move in opposite direction. That means in the case of distrotatory process, the terminal lobes same face interact. In the case of condensatory process, the terminal lobes opposite faces interacted. In the case of distillatory process, the terminal lobes same face are interacting. So I have to show the interaction here. If I consider the interaction, this is a 4-electron system, but there is no node in this system in this transition state. Therefore, this is anti-aromatic, and anti-aromatic systems are photochemically allowed and obviously thermally forbidden. So how fast we can work out? That means in the case of this particular reaction, I can therefore say that condensatory ring closure in the case of your butadiene cyclobutene interconversion or the 4-pi electrocyclization process is a thermally allowed process, and distillatory ring closure in the case of this 4-pi electrocyclization is photochemically allowed. Now let's talk about the second example in the case of your cyclodation, in the case of electrocyclic reactions. I'll move fast. Hexatriene cyclohexa 1,3-diene. Hexatriene is this system, a 6-pi electron system, undergoes electrocyclic ring closure. As I've shown you with the motion of these bonds, it forms cyclohexadiene. Right. The transition state corresponding to the acyclic component, which is hexatriene, having 6-pi electrons, should be one which is more stable. Therefore, I have to draw the psi1 of hexatriene. And what is the psi1 of hexatriene? Let's draw the transition state. In the transition state, we'll consider both the stereochemical modes, the condensatory as well as the distillatory. Right. In the case of transition state, we have to draw the most stable orbital, which is psi1 with 0 nodes. So all positives on the same face, no nodes between them. When we draw the condensatory, or when we write the condensatory ring process, we interact in the terminal lobes. These terminal lobes opposite faces are interacting. That means in the case of condensatory process, always there will be a node. So this is a 6-electron system with 1 node. I know according to Huckel rule that 6-electron system with 0 node was aromatic, but with the introduction of odd nodes it becomes aromaticity alters, and therefore this system becomes anti-aromatic, and this anti-aromatic system of course is thermally photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. Consider the distillatory process. If you consider the distillatory process, you can see that in the distillatory process the terminal lobes same face interact. So this is a 6-pi electron system with 0 node, aromatic in nature according to Huckel rule, and aromatic systems are thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. So simple, we can say the 6-pi electrocyclization of hexatriene to cyclohexadiene under condensatory ring closure is photochemically allowed, and according to distillatory ring closure is a thermally allowed process. Right? Let's take one more example and then we'll wind up this portion. Let's take the example of octatetraene and cycloocta 1,3-triene interconversion. This is an example of 8-pi electrocyclization process, right? Now this 8-pi electrocyclization process is this process in which the acyclic component is your octatetraene. This undergoes cyclization as I've shown with the motion of the bonds. It forms cycloocta 1,3,5-triene molecule. I have to write the transition state. Of course, the transition state has to correspond to the acyclic component. Acyclic component is an 8-electron system. The most stable molecular orbital will always remain psi1, which has 0 nodes. And since it has 0 nodes, I can say this is the orbital, the 8-electron system. I've drawn all 8 atomic orbital lobes in this molecular orbital. In the case of condensatory ring closure, as we know now simply, that in the case of condensatory ring closure, the terminal lobes opposite phase interact. That means always there will be a node. So this 8-electron system with 1 node, if you again go back according to Huckel rule, 4Q system, 8-electron system with 0 node was anti-aromatic. With the introduction of the node, the aromaticity alters. Therefore, this is an aromatic system. Once this is an aromatic system, this is thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. For a distillatory process, same atomic orbital, all those 8 electrons, all those 8 atomic orbital lobes. In the distillatory process, the terminal lobes same phase interacts. So this is an 8-electron system with a 0 node, and therefore the system is, according to Huckel's rules, anti-aromatic. Anti-aromatic systems are photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. Hence, we can say 8-pi electrocyclization under condensatory ring conditions, under condensatory stereochemical mode is a thermally allowed process, whereas under distillatory stereochemical mode is a photochemically allowed process. So it is this easy to ascertain the reaction conditions using the PMO approach. Now we'll talk about the third category of pericyclic reactions. Here you'll use the PMO approach to gauge the reaction conditions in this. Now again, We know what is sigmatropic reactions. It's a migration of a sigma bonded group over pi framework. In general, you know, we normally represent it using the IJ nomenclature. There are 4 set of rules as I've written for all pericyclic reactions. First is the most stable molecular orbitals are drawn. Now, as I've told you, in the case of the FMO approach, we consider that while transforming from the reactant to product in the case of sigmatropic reactions, we imagine or we bring about a hypothetical cleavage of the sigma bond which holds the sigma bonded group to the pi framework, generating 2 radicaloid fragments. One, the radicaloid corresponding to the pi framework, and another is the radicaloid fragment corresponding to the sigma bonded group. In the transition state, we have to draw the molecular orbitals corresponding to both these fragments, both these radicaloid species, and then try to understand the interaction of the various interaction corresponding to a particular stereochemical mode. Therefore, the most stable molecular orbital of the pi framework radicaloid fragment, which was hypothetically created by the imaginary cleavage of the sigma bond holding the sigma bonded group to the pi framework, is considered with the most stable molecular orbital of the sigma bonded group. So, interaction of the most stable molecular orbital of the pi framework radicaloid with the most stable molecular orbital of the sigma bonded radicaloid is considered. Then, as in all the cases, atomic orbital lobes are joined together with dotted lines. Maximum overlap is shown after considering the stereochemical mode. Then, number of electrons and number of nodes in the transition state are calculated, and from this calculation we work out whether this transition state will be aromatic or anti-aromatic. Again, an aromatic transition state corresponds to thermal reaction, and an anti-aromatic transition state corresponds to photochemical reaction. We know in the case of suprafacial reaction there are 4 possible stereochemical modes: supra-retention, supra-inversion, Antara-retention, and Antara-inversion. We'll talk about all these 4 stereochemical modes. Let's get started, and first example we'll use here is a 1,3 sigmatropic shift. Okay, when we consider a 1,3 sigmatropic shift, I have this kind of a system, a double bond, single double bond attached to the lilic carbon as a sigma bonded group. We say that this group migrates over a pi framework with this kind of a motion. We, as with the FMO approach, we imagine that there is a hypothetical cleavage of the sigma bond which holds the sigma bonded group to the pi framework, generating 2 radicaloid species. One is the pi framework radicaloid, another is the alkyl radicaloid species. In the case of pi framework radicaloid species, as in this case, it will be a allyl radical or a propenyl radical. We've already talked about this thing. So I have to draw in the transition state the interaction between this radicaloid species and the methyl radical which will be created after an imaginary cleavage of this sigma bond. Right. Now let's draw the transition state. While considering the transition state in the case of your sigmatropic reactions, there are 4 possible transition state: supra-retention, supra-inversion, Antara-retention, and Antara-inversion. Now, first of all, how do I draw the transition state? I have to draw the most stable orbital corresponding to this propenyl radical. I have to draw the most stable orbital. These 3 carbon atoms correspond to this radicaloid of the pi framework, and this 1 carbon atom corresponds to the radicaloid of the alkyl radical. I have to draw the most stable orbital corresponding to both of them. So in the case of radicaloid plus here, in the case of radicaloid corresponding to the alkyl radical, again a plus here because it was a single carbon system. Right. This is the transition state. Now, considering the suprafacial retention process, when I use suprafacial word in the case of sigmatropic, this corresponds to the pi framework. When I use retention or inversion, this corresponds to the sigma bonded group. Now, in the case of suprafacial retention, if a sigma bonded group is getting detached from this face, upper face, it will attach itself to the upper face only. Then it will remain suprafacial. If it attaches to the lower face, then it will become antarafacial. Retention and inversion are if the lower face of the sigma bonded group is getting detached from the pi framework, it is the lower face or the same phase it is attaching, then it is retention. If opposite face is attaching, then it is inversion. So let's join the atomic orbital lobes using dotted line with the consideration of the stereochemical mode. Okay, that's suprafacial retention. This face is adding, this face will add, right? Lower face is adding of the sigma bonded group, lower face will add. So the dotted line joining in the case of suprafacial retention should be this one. 3 electrons are coming from the radicaloid form, 1 electron is coming from the alkyl radicals, therefore it is the 4 electron system. Suprafacial retention will not have a node in it, hence this suprafacial retention process with the 4 electron system with zero nodes is anti-aromatic and photochemically loud and thermally forbidden. Suprainversion. Supra means same face of the pi framework. Inversion means opposite lobes are adding. This lobe, the lower lobe is getting detached and the upper lobe is getting attached. Therefore, we have, if we can join the dots here, you see that there is the anti-bonding interaction which is coming between these two orbitals. That means there is a node here. 4 electron system still remains the same with one node, changes the aromaticity. If 4 electron with 0 node was anti-aromatic, with one node will become aromatic, and we know aromatic systems are thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. Antara retention. Antara means opposite faces of the pi framework will add. Retention means same lobe or the same face of the sigma bonded group will add. So in the Antara facial retention, we join the bonds like this, that this plus is interacting with this minus. That means there is a node, 4 electron system with one node is aromatic and is thermally loud and photochemically forbidden. Antara inversion. Again, supra retention and Antara inversion behavior is same. Supra inversion and Antara retention behavior is same. So as you see here, this lobe is interacting with the lower lobe in the case of Antara facial inversion. Antara because opposite faces of the pi framework, retention because opposite faces of the sigma bonded group. So this lobe is interacting with this one, negative interacting with negative. This is a 4 electron system having 0 nodes, is anti-aromatic and photochemically loud and therefore thermally forbidden. Therefore, I can sum it up and say that 1,3 sigma tropic shift under supra retention and Antara reversion, this and this is a photochemically loud process, whereas supra inversion and supra and Antara retention is a thermally allowed process. So we can gauge a sigmatropic reaction using PMO concept in this way. Right. Let's talk about the second example here. Let's talk about the 1,5 sigmatropic shift. When we consider a 1,5 sigmatropic shift, remember in the case of 1,5 sigmatropic shift, I have 2 pi bonds attached to the internal arylic carbon atom is a sigma bonded group. You know how do we move this bond? We move this group here, we move this group here, it comes here, this pi bond moves, and this is how it forms. Imagine a hypothetical cleavage of this carbon atom. It will generate 2 radicaloids. One is this pi framework pentadienyl radical, one is this methyl radical. So when I have to draw the transition state, again remember while drawing the transition state, there are 4 possible stereochemical modes. The transition state will still remain the same. 5 electrons coming from pentadienyl radicaloid pi framework, 1 electron coming from the methyl radical as in the example. So it's total, this is how the transition state would look like. The most stable orbital corresponding to pentadienyl radical is psi1, of course corresponding to the methyl radical. It will be a single lobe in this fashion. So all pluses in the upper face, plus in the lower face. Supra retention interaction is shown. Suprafacial means both the terminal lobes of the pi framework same face will add. Retention means lower lobe getting detached and lower lobe will get attached. So this is a 5 electron coming from pentadienyl, 1 electron coming from your alkyl radical or methyl radical. So it is a total 6 electron system. With this 6 electron system, as you can see, there is no nodes. 4q plus 2 pi system is aromatic according to Huckel's rule. Aromatic systems are thermally loud and photochemically forbidden. Suprainversion. While considering suprainversion, as you can see in this case, suprafacial inversion means same faces adding. Suprainversion means same phases adding, but the opposite lobes in the case of this is adding. I've drawn, I'm sorry, here in the wrong way. Suprafacial means same phases adding, but inversion means the lobe should be shown like this. Inversion means the opposite face of the sigma bonded group should add. So this is a sigma, this is a suprafacial inversion dotted representation. Now, as you can see, a plus interacts with minus. That means there is an anti-bonding interaction. That means this 6 electron system will now have 1 node. With 0 node was aromatic. With 1 node, aromaticity inverts. So it is anti-aromatic. Anti-aromatic systems are photochemically loud and thermally forbidden. Antara retention. Antara means opposite faces are adding. Retention means same face of the p lobe, same face of the sigma bonded group is adding. So this plus interacts with this negative. There is a node. Since there is a node with 6 electron system, it becomes anti-aromatic and therefore is photochemically loud and thermally forbidden. Similarly, Antara inversion, opposite faces of the pi framework, opposite faces of the sigma bonded group. So this plus minus interacts with this minus here. So this is all bonding interaction here. 6 electrons with 0 node, aromatic, thermally loud and photochemically forbidden. Hence I can sum it up. 1,5 sigmatropic shifts under suprafacial retention or Antara facial inversion are thermally loud and photochemically forbidden, and under suprafacial inversion and Antara facial retention are photochemically loud and thermally forbidden in nature. So we can work out the reaction conditions using the PMO approach corresponding to a sigmatropic reaction. Right. Now we'll talk about the third category of sigmatropic reaction, which we have not discussed earlier in the case of FMO approach. We'll talk about the sigmatropic reactions. We'll talk about the 3,3 sigmatropic reaction, which you all know is a Cope rearrangement. You know, Cope rearrangements reactant system is a hexa 1,5-diene, which is this system 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a hexa system with a diene, a double bond at first position and fifth position. Now we know it is the 3,4 bond which cleaves, and 1,6 formed, 3,4 bond cleaves, 1,6 formed is 1,2 double bonds changes to 2,3, 5,6 double bond changes to 4,5, and this is the reactant system. This is a very typical example of fluxional molecules, and this is a very, very important example as far as a sigmatropic reaction is concerned. Anyways, working on the same lines, let's imagine a hypothetical cleavage. Let's consider this as the pi framework. Let's consider this as the sigma bonded group. Now I have to consider a hypothetical cleavage of the sigma bonded group, of the sigma bond holding the sigma bonded group to the pi framework. Once I undergo imaginary cleavage, I'll generate two radicaloids here. One radicaloid corresponding to the pi framework, one radicaloid corresponding to the sigma bonded group. Though both are similar, one has to be considered as a pi framework, the another one has to be considered as a sigma bonded group. Right. Again, the logic would remain same. We have to consider the transition state. And while considering the transition state, we have to consider all the four stereochemical modes. Okay. Now, once you draw the transition state, remember that now I am drawing a transition state corresponding to two radicaloids, one pi framework, another sigma bonded group, which happens to be same in the case of Cope rearrangement. As per the rule, we have to draw the most stable orbital corresponding to all the radicaloid or all orbitals which are involved. So according to pi framework, I draw the most stable orbital, which will again remain psi1. According to the sigma bonded group, again the most stable orbital is psi1. So all pluses here corresponding to pi framework, all pluses here corresponding to the sigma bonded group. Now considering the suprafacial retention, if the system was attached here, this phase is interacting with this one. If on the pi framework this phase is attaching, it is suprafacial. If lower face of the sigma bonded group was attached, and again the lower face of the sigma bonded group is getting attached, it is retention. I'll repeat again, suprafacial because upper face of the pi framework got detached and upper face got attached. That means it is suprafacial. Retention when same face of the pi of the sigma bonded group got detached and same face is getting attached, it is retention. So as you can see, this system, 3 electrons are coming from the 3 electrons, 2 corresponding to the pi bond and 1 corresponding to radicaloid coming from the pi framework, and similarly 3 electrons coming from the sigma bonded group, which makes this system as a 6 electron system. And in the 6 electron system, with the suprafacial retention process, as in all previous cases, there is 0 nodes, and with 0 node we can safely say that this system with 6 electron system, 6 electrons and 0 node is aromatic in nature, and since it is aromatic in nature, it is thermally loud and photochemically forbidden. With suprainversion, the only difference is that in the case of suprainversion, the sigma bonded group's opposite face will add, whereas the pi framework same face will add. So positive here, this negative will interact with this positive. I have an anti-bonding interaction. 6 electron with 1 node will change its aromaticity from aromatic to anti-aromatic, and anti-aromatic systems are photochemically loud and thermally forbidden. With Antara retention, opposite faces of the pi framework will add, but the same face of the sigma bonded group will add. So I'm interacting this with this. Again, there is an anti-bonding interaction. Since there is an anti-bonding interaction in the 6 electron system, it makes it anti-aromatic. Anti-aromatic systems are photochemically loud and thermally forbidden. With Antara inversion, opposite face of the sigma pi framework, opposite face of the sigma bonded group will add. So negative will interact with negative. 6 electron system with 0 node is aromatic, thermally loud and photochemically forbidden. Therefore, I can safely say that Cope rearrangement under supra retention and Antara inversion is thermally loud and photochemically forbidden, whereas in the case of supra inversion and Antara retention is photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. And in general, as I've told you multiple times, that if there is no mention of the stereochemical mode, the default stereochemical mode in the case of sigmatropic reaction always remains suprafacial retention. And under suprafacial retention, this process was thermally allowed. And since it is thermally allowed, I can say that the Cope rearrangement is a thermally allowed process, right? So this is something regarding your Cope rearrangement. We can say this is a thermally allowed process, and since it is thermally allowed process, this reaction is so extensive, so fast, right? We'll talk about the last example in the case of sigmatropic reactions. We'll talk about 2,3 sigmatropic rearrangement. If you remember, I've given you one example in the assignment regarding the 2,3 sigmatropic reactions. You remember that in the case of 2,3 sigmatropic reactions, my system is something like this, that I have a double bond. The next carbon atom, which is the Lily carbon atom, attached to the Lily carbon atom is a carbon atom which normally is positively charged, and attached to the positively charged carbon atom is a heteroatom which is normally negatively charged owing to the presence of the lone pair of electron. So 2,3 sigmatropic shifts or rearrangement normally occurs in a particular class of system. A double bond attached to a Lily carbon atom attached to a carbocation, and the carbocation is further attached to a heteroatom having a negative charge. So I have a eyelid here and a Lily group here. This is a reactant system in the case of sigmatropic reaction. As with all sigmatropic reactions, as with all sigmatropic reactions, we cleave the bond which is joined to the allylic carbon atom. So this bond is cleaved. Once this bond is cleaved, we show the reaction like this, that this Y attacks this carbon atom and forms a bond between Y and this carbon atom. This double bond shifts here. That bond moves to the X atom and relieves its positive charge. That means this becomes neutral in nature. So I have this system, right, which is constructed. Again, they have to be a hypothetical cleavage of this bond. It generate a allyl radical here and a radical cation as far as this system is concerned. This is a 3-electron system pi framework. This is important. Again, this fragment which is cleaved, imaginary fragment which is cleaved, again is a 3-electron system. And in this 3-electron system, as you can see, I have 2 electrons which are coming from this lone pair and 1 electron which is coming from the radicaloid function. So 3 electrons coming from the pi framework, 3 electrons coming from the sigma bond network. Now I'll draw the transition state and work out the reaction conditions in this case. So if you consider the transition state in this particular case, this is the allyl radical and this is the radical cation which was created. Of course, the most stable orbital has to be drawn, psi 1 corresponding to this, psi 1 corresponding to this. This is a 3-electron system, this is a 3-electron system. So all positives here, all positives here. A total of a 5-carbon atom system, but the system is total having 6 electrons. So as you can see in suprafacial retention, all these 6 electrons are without any nodes, so it is aromatic and hence thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. With supra inversion, this is the pi framework, same phase is adding, inversion opposite phase of the radical cation is adding. Therefore, there is the antibonding interaction with 6 nodes, 6 pi electron, 1 node, it is anti-aromatic, photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. With Antara in retention, as you can see, the opposite phases are adding. That means Antara facial corresponding to the pi framework. There is an antibonding interaction, it is anti-aromatic in nature, it is photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. And similarly, Antara inversion, opposite phases are adding, negative interacts with negative with 6 electrons, 0 node is aromatic, thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. Therefore, I can sum it up and say that 2,3 sigmatropic shifts are under supra retention and Antara inversion, thermally allowed and photochemically forbidden. Under supra inversion and Antara retention, photochemically allowed and thermally forbidden. Or in general, the default mode is supra. You can say 2,3 sigmatropic reactions are thermally allowed reaction. Therefore, using the PMO approach, which is extremely simple, we can work out the reaction conditions in all possible reactions. Hence, we have worked out the 3 approaches to work out the reaction conditions in pericyclic reaction, namely OCD approach, the FMO approach and the PMO approach. And then we have used the selection tables for all these 3 approaches. You can use any approach out of the 3. You can use the selection tables and then probably work out the reaction conditions in this thing. In my next lecture, we'll be talking about the certain examples, and we'll be talking about the 4th possible method of gauging the reaction condition, which are formulas. And formulas are extremely easy to use and consider. We only need to remember one formula. We can create multiple formulas from that, and then we can gauge the reaction condition by just the click of an hand. So with this, we'll be ending up the second phase of pericyclic reaction. We have done the first phase, which was the different kinds of pericyclic reaction. We have discussed the second phase, which was the reaction condition gauging using different approaches. And with the introduction of the last and third phase, we'll be talking about the reaction conditions. We'll be talking about the speed of reactions. We'll be talking about miscellaneous categories of pericyclic reactions like ene, like heliotropic. We'll be talking about the secondary orbital interactions in certain cases. We will also be talking in detail regarding the Cope rearrangements and its allowance under reaction or thermal conditions. So thank you so much for now, and I'll have my next video on the formulas. Thank you.